Welcome to my channel. Today, we're gonna be sharing 5 HOA rules that will blow your mind. Make sure to watch each one of them and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Also make sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Alright, let's get started with number 5. No. 5. A homeowner in Florida recently had a hurricane fence installed around their property. The homeowner was cited by the HOA because the color of the fence did not match the paint chips that were submitted to the Architectural Review Committee for approval, according to the HOA. The color of the fence was too dark and did not match the approved sample. The homeowner argued that the color of the fence was fine because it was painted the same color as the house. But the HOA argued that the fence color should match the trim color and not the main body of the house. After the homeowner refused to pay the $250 fine, they took him to court. The court ruled in favor of the HOA, ordering the homeowner to either change the color of the fence or remove it altogether. This is an interesting case because it shows that HOA letters can be very strict when it comes to enforcing their rules, even in emergency situations. The homeowner likely thought that they were doing something that was necessary to protect their property and their family in the event of a hurricane. However, the HOA was not having it, and they were willing to take the homeowner to court to enforce their rules. This is why it is always important to read your HOA covenants and restrictions before purchasing a property in a community. You never know what kind of crazy rules they might have. No. 4. An Illinois HOA recently attempted to fine a resident for posting political signs on their front lawn. The HOA claimed that the signs violated the community's aesthetic guidelines, but the resident argued that it was a violation of their First Amendment rights. The resident had posted signs supporting a candidate for local sheriff, as well as a sign opposing a proposed jetport in the area. The HOA sent the resident a letter claiming that the signs violated the community's aesthetic guidelines, and gave him 10 days to remove them, or he would be fined $100 per day. The resident refused to remove the signs and the HOA took him to court. The court ruled in favor of the resident, finding that the HOA's actions were a violation of his First Amendment rights. This is an example of how far some HOA letters will go to enforce their rules. They are clearly not afraid to take legal action against residents who violate the rules, even if it means violating the law themselves. In this case, the HOA was trying to restrict the residents' freedom of speech, and if they had been successful, it could have set a bad precedent for other residents in the community. No. 3. A homeowner in Texas recently built a wooden deck on their back porch without first getting approval from the HOA. When the HOA found out about the deck, they sent the homeowner a letter saying that they had 10 days to remove it or they would be fined $50 per day. The homeowner refused to remove the deck, and the HOA took them to court. The court ruled in favor of the HOA, but it wasn't because of the deck. The court ruled that the homeowner had violated the HOA's Architectural Control Committee process, which required them to submit plans for any additions to their home. The homeowner had not followed this process, and therefore the deck was considered illegal. This is another example of how important it is to follow the rules and regulations of your HOA. If you don't, you could end up in court. In this case, the homeowner probably didn't realize that they needed approval from the HOA to build a deck, but once the HOA notified them of the issue, they should have taken the necessary steps to correct it. Instead, they chose to fight the HOA and ultimately lost. No. 2. An HOA in California recently tried to fine a resident for having a vegetable garden in their front yard. The HOA claimed that the garden violated the community's aesthetic guidelines, but the resident argued that it was a violation of their civil rights. The resident had planted vegetables such as tomatoes, lettuce, and herbs in their front yard, and the HOA sent them a letter saying that they had 10 days to remove the garden or they would be fined $50 per day. The resident refused to remove the garden, and the HOA took them to court. The court ruled in favor of the HOA, finding that the garden did violate the community's aesthetic guidelines. This is another example of how far some HOA letters will go to enforce their rules. In this case, the HOA was trying to restrict the residents' ability to grow their own food, which seems ridiculous. Many people grow vegetable gardens in their front or backyard, and it has never caused any problems, but this HOA was not having it. They were willing to take the resident to court to force them to remove the garden. Number 1. An HOA in Florida recently demanded that a resident remove a shed from their property. The HOA claimed that the shed was a hazard to the community, but the resident argued that it was a violation of their property rights. The resident had built a shed on their property to store tools and equipment. However, the HOA sent them a letter saying that they had 10 days to remove the shed or they would be fined $100 per day. The resident refused to remove the shed, and the HOA took them to court. The court ruled in favor of the HOA, finding that the shed did pose a hazard to the community. In this case, the HOA was right to take action. Sheds can pose a serious hazard if they are not properly maintained. If the HOA had not taken action, someone could have been injured and the HOA could have been liable. Thanks for watching. See you next time.